Ladies and gentlemen, infinity. Welcome back to another episode of Vanilla Minecraft. And today, we are over at the villager trading area just temporarily. I didn't really intend to come here today because, like I said last time, I wanted to finish this area up before you saw it again, and obviously I haven't done that yet. But there was a comment last episode that asked what our big villager up top would look like if he was given a little bit of blush, which sounds like a very comical idea to me, so I wanted to try it out. Let's see what this guy's second book trade is quick. Blast Protection 3, don't really care, but he does have Infinity, so we'll probably keep that guy. I'll worry about that later on, though. So, our big villager up top, we wanted to see what he looked like with a little bit of blush, and I tried out a few different options, and honestly, a lot of them didn't work as well as I kind of hoped they would. I tried a bunch of terracotta colors, and they all felt like they were either bruises or they felt like borderline bloody, which, that's not really ideal. So I had to go full-on anime girl and give him vibrant pink cheeks, which is definitely an interesting look. It's little more goofy looking than I actually thought it was going to be even. But it also made me realize that our villager here is kind of prime real estate for interesting temporary builds. So we have this giant character that we can put pretty much anything on. We can basically play dress up with this guy, and we can do all kinds of like festive builds. For example, we are fast approaching Halloween, and unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to build any like big, really cool looking Halloween structures this year. As much as I would love to, I'm just completely out of time. So we can actually use this guy as kind of an excuse to have just a little bit of Halloween festive joy to our series here. So I'm going to go ahead and try and give him a little bit of a decorative clothing piece, and we'll see what he looks like being a little bit more festive. Alright, so here's our villager with a little witch hat on him. I thought that would be appropriate, and I think it looks okay, at least for a temporary build. It doesn't look quite as good from the sides or the back, because the top of the hat there is actually only 2 blocks thick, because we still need the skylight coming down to reach the doors inside the villager's head. So that's a little bit of a shame, but thankfully we can only really see the villager from the front, so I don't think it's too bad, especially because that build's only going to be there for a week or maybe 2. So I think that'll do for now, and that's also going to do for our villager trading area for the time being. Because today I want to head back over to LimeLand for the first time in a little while, take care of a few things over there, and maybe even start a new minigame. So I'm going to head over there, and I'll be back with you guys when we're ready to get going. So here we are at spawn, which is still a bit of a mess. I still need to come over here and try and finish things up a bit and make things look better. Though we do have a giant pumpkin that supplies pumpkin pie now, which is kind of nice. Take one of those with me. So let's head on over to LimeLand, because that's what I want to focus on today. Swoosh. Now, as you may recall, last time we were here, we kind of improved the entrance a little bit, because I didn't want to just have a floating sign, right? So we built this little entranceway, and that's fine, but it's still kind of boring. So I want to dress this up a little bit. I want to make this look a little bit nicer today. I want to try and continue our fence. We're probably going to go with this design over here. I'm not going to necessarily encase the entire area quite yet, just because I don't really know where we're all going to go with this. But I want to try and at least get some of it wrapped around so we have kind of a border to the area, especially over on that side, because I don't want people accidentally encroaching on Nap's stuff. So I'm going to try and do that, and I also want to add, actually, come to think of it, there's one other thing I was about to forget. I want to add a billboard. I want to add something that will point people over to LimeLand, because when we're in spawn, there's no real way of knowing that LimeLand is over there, right? Like if someone's new on the server or they just haven't been on in a while and they're not aware of it, they can be wandering around out here, and unless they follow this road, just kind of curious to where it goes, they're never really going to find it. So I think that if we build like a billboard or some kind of sign pointing over to LimeLands, maybe over here, not necessarily right on this hill, probably a little ways out, but something so that people at least know there's something over here to look at, and then have it kind of direct them over to LimeLands. I think that would be pretty cool, because once they get, let's see, how close do you need to get to actually see LimeLand? Right about here. Once you get to right here, it's good. So we really just need to pull people this far out of spawn, and they'll be able to tell that something's going on over here. So I want to do that too, and depending on how all of that goes, I do also want to add something new to LimeLand as well. So as you may recall, we built our little witch arena over there, and Leb is building a really cool hockey minigame, which we'll have to try out once it's done. It's not finished quite yet, but that is another cool thing that's going in, and I would like to add a new minigame here today, or at least start to. I don't think we'll be able to finish it, but if we can at least get some of the core stuff in place, that would be really, really cool. So I'm going to go get to some of this stuff, mostly the entrance stuff and probably the fence that goes around it. And I'll be back with you guys once we have some decent progress made, and we can go from there. So the entrance to LimeLand is slowly shaping up. It's nowhere near its final form yet, of course. That's going to take quite some time. I do want to put some more structures and stuff outside of it, for example, like a horse stable or some kind of method of transport. And I'm still not detailing the area around this path too much until we decide what exactly we're doing. Because, as I've said before, we could end up replacing this entire path with a different design. You know, maybe a dirt-style path, or maybe something that's more kind of uniform, something more like solid stone or stone slabs or whatever. That's going to depend on spawn when we get around to that, which hopefully we will soon. I've been kind of putting that off because it requires me to coordinate with all kinds of people, but for right now, this is what we're working with, and I think it's okay. So I added in this tree, which was very experimental. Basically, I couldn't go too tall with it because I didn't want to block the sign as we were walking in, at least until you were at the end of this bridge. So I had to go relatively short, but I still wanted it to look kind of interesting, so I went with kind of a spread out, more horizontal style of tree. And I think it's okay. The trunk needs to be tweaked a little bit. I really wish we had these 6-sided log blocks, which unfortunately we still do not. And I also was a little bit experimental with the leaves. So normally when I do a custom tree, I make all of the leaves kind of uniform. I make them all feel like they're part of one big shape, or, you know, individual groups of shapes on individual branches or whatever, but they're not very random looking. They look natural, but they don't look chaotic. So I've seen other people go the more chaotic route, and I always thought that it looked decent, but I'm not entirely sold on which way's better. I think it looks okay this way, but I'm not sure if that's like better than the way that I normally do it or not. I'm not entirely sure. There's a few leaves that like they're just hanging out on their own, and I don't know. I don't know if that looks good to me or not. I'll probably tweak it a little bit and mess with it and see what it looks like and see if I get used to it, but I felt like that would be a good thing to have here. Our path breaks off in a few different directions just so we can have, you know, structures and whatnot over here, like I said. And it also just kind of breaks up the area, makes it feel a little bit better rather than just having a lone path going in here like we did before. I thought that felt a little bit boring. And off of our entrance, I added these extra little bits just because I thought that having a single line where, you know, basically before we only had this and you'd walk in and, you know, you're in, you're out, you're in, you're out. I thought that having a little bit more of an entrance, something where you have to actually walk through something, would feel a little better. And I wasn't really sure what to do about that because, again, we're not trying to do anything too crazy. I don't want this place to feel like super high-tech or amazing or anything. I want it to feel kind of campy. So I think that that's a decent solution. I don't know. I'm not entirely sure that this feels like hanging banners. I may have to redo that and try and come up with a slightly different way of handling that, but I think it's an okay idea at least. And, of course, I also added in at least part of the fence. Not that it's doing a whole lot in some spots like this. We obviously have a lot of landscaping to do around it, but I did get quite a lot of it in. Mostly on this side, because I didn't want to intrude on Nap stuff again. So I wanted to kind of establish a hard border over here. I could probably bring it out a little bit more out here, actually, come to think of it. I might have to move these last several over, because I think we could get a little bit more space out of it, because Nap stuff is way up there. We could probably move that over. I'll have to keep that in mind. Obviously, that's not the prettiest fence in the world, but I wanted it to be easy to build and easy to move around for other people if they want to, you know, make their builds expand out a little bit more, stuff like that. Hello, skeleton. You spawned in quite the interesting spot. Ouch. So that's what I did, and yeah, I think that that's good for the entrance, at least for the time being. I think that I want to figure out what we're doing with our path before I try and really work out all of the little intricate details. Like, obviously more plant life and stuff would be nice, but until we decide what exactly we're doing with our path, I don't want to get too crazy with the little detail things. And hopefully we'll work on some more interesting builds and stuff like that in the area soon as well. But for right now, what I want to do is take care of the billboard that I mentioned earlier. So we need a way to direct people over to the LimeLand area, if they're not familiar with it. And like I said, having a billboard just over here, like just outside of spawn, is probably the best way to go. Now, I've experimented with this a little bit, and I think what I'm going to do is make something similar to our main sign over there, something that's held up by a hot air balloon and it's, you know, kind of holding up a little sign. And I've experimented with it a bit. I really wanted to make physical letters so that you could read it from a long way away. Like, for example, if we walk up here, you can read LimeLand from here, right? Unfortunately, that would make the sign massive. To say, like, you know, LimeLand now open and have an arrow pointing over there or whatever we do, oops, that would be a huge, huge sign. It would be almost the same size as our one over here, if not the same size. So that would be a little bit too much. So I think we're going to have to do it with banners, which does have a couple shortcomings. It means that people aren't likely going to be able to actually read it from within the middle of spawn because it's going to be a little bit too far away. And the banners aren't going to be loaded, similar to how when we walk up to LimeLand, we can't see the banners hanging on the wooden stuff. So that's a little unfortunate, but I think it'll be enough if we have a hot air balloon holding like a big piece of wood that'll behave like the back of a sign. I think that'll be enough to get people to walk out close enough to be able to read the banners. So I think we're going to try and go that route. If it doesn't work out, we can try and figure something else out. But for right now, I think that'll do just fine. So I'm going to go get to that, and I'll be back with you guys once it's in place. So here's our view from our central spawn platform thing, and I think that that's okay. Obviously, we can't actually read the text from here because banners have an abysmal render distance, but there's at least something going on over there to kind of draw players in. So hopefully people will see that thing going on over there, will wonder what it is, and will follow this path, or maybe just cut over the hill. However they'll do it, they'll get over here, and eventually, I mean, seriously, can they really not be rendered from this far away? But But eventually, they'll see a LimeLand now open and pointing over to the right. So I think that'll do what it's meant to do, or at the very least, it's kind of a cool little piece to have near spawn, I guess. So I'm glad we built that. I do have some other ideas for kind of LimeLand advertisement, but we'll cross that road when we come to it, and hopefully when LimeLand's a little bit more kind of fleshed out and has more stuff going on. That being said, I think it's about time that we try and work on our minigame just a little bit. Now, all this other stuff I did today did take a lot longer than I thought it was going to, and I kind of ran out of time this week in general. Bit of a rough week. But I think that we have enough time to just get some very core functionality of our minigame, at least kind of a template for it, so that I can show you guys how it's going to work, and so you can kind of understand what we're going to be doing. Now, I'm not entirely sure where I'm going to be putting this quite yet, kind of thinking this area right here, but I'm going to go ahead and prepare just a very, very basic demonstration of what we're going to be doing, and then I'll explain the process to you and kind of what we're going to be going for. And we'll probably call it there. We're probably not going to get much actual gameplay done or anything like that. But I think that as long as we get the idea in place and you guys kind of know what's going on, you can start giving me really cool suggestions. And I'd also like it if you could help me name this thing. So I'm going to go ahead and set that up, and I'll be back with you guys in just a minute. Alright, so here is our little example to demonstrate the minigame that we're going to be making. Of course, this isn't actually going to demonstrate much, and this certainly doesn't reflect the quality that the game is actually going to have. This is just a very, very bare bones way for me to kind of explain the core concepts that we're going to be working with. So to give you an idea of what we're doing, if we go ahead and push this button, a zombie is going to get released, and he's going to pathfind straight over to this far side here. Now he's doing that because there's a villager that I cured and kind of trapped down there, right behind those blocks right there. And that means that the zombie is going to do whatever he needs to do to get straight up to that area. Now, this doesn't need to be a straight line. We can do anything we want with this. I could put the villager right next to the zombie and make the zombie run all the way through this huge gauntlet of mazes and all kinds of stuff. He would always make his way through as long as there was a clear path. And we're actually going to use that to try and create a bit of a competitive minigame, a one-on-one minigame. So we're going to basically create two gauntlet scenarios where a zombie will have to run through a kind of winding area. It'll have all kinds of traps and things that can speed up the zombie as well as slow them down. And the premise is basically that whoever zombie reaches the end first is the winner. So what we really want to do is have these setups where, for example, we have this thing here. If our zombie ever gets back in position, he's being transported along via a water stream underneath. There he goes. So basically what we have here is slime blocks where, you know, zombies, if they walk on slime blocks, they're much slower than normal, as you can see. But you step on the pressure plate and he can go full speed because it's swapped over to full blocks. So that's just a very, very simple concept, like one of the most basic ones I could do, just based on the stuff that I had with me at the time. But stuff like this, things that you can activate to speed up your zombie, or things that you could activate to slow down your opponents. I feel like I'm being snuck up on. So, for example, you could splash a slowness potion on them, you could dispense water that would push them back, you could activate a slime block that would kind of knock them around, whatever it may be. Or, you know, on your own side, you could activate floors that would kind of speed them up, you could throw speed potions at them. You might be able to launch them into the air with a slime block to give them like access to a shortcut or something like that if you can time it really well. All kinds of stuff like that. And I think if we pull that off the right way and we kind of get the right blend of different traps and speed ups and stuff like this and position them correctly, it could actually be a really, really fun competitive minigame because you'd hopefully have to make decisions. Like if we have a spot like this in the system, you'd have to decide whether you want to stand on this and give your zombie a quicker run through this area, or if you want to go and slow down the enemy's zombie, or, you know, maybe they're going to come over and push something that's going to slow them down even though you're on this pressure plate, and all kinds of stuff. Hopefully we can find some good interactions like that. It's probably going to take a lot of playtesting and a lot of tinkering in order to get that kind of, you know, that kind of balance to it, but I think that could be a lot of fun. It's a concept I've been waiting to try and do for a really, really long time. But you get the core idea, hopefully. Basically, you know, the zombie needs to get to the end. Whoever zombie falls down first, as this light indicates, they're going to be the winner. Obviously, it would be a little more grandiose than that. It would be, you know, a column of lights, and a tune would go off, and maybe some fireworks would shoot up, and stuff like that. But that's the idea. Whoever zombie gets to the end first wins. Do what you can to slow down the other person and speed up yourself. Or your zombie, I suppose. So, that is the concept for the minigame. Hopefully you guys like the idea. If you have ideas for traps or speed ups or anything like that, be sure to tell me, because I have quite a few, but I could very easily be missing some really cool stuff. And also, if you have a name for this, it would be really, really cool if you could tell me. So, it might be a little hard to name it before we have like the full game done. I've been thinking, because I've had this idea for probably years at this point, I've been thinking of calling it Zomprix, kind of like the Grand Prix, but zombie. Haha, you know. But if you guys have something better than that, be sure to let me know, because I am not exactly the best with names, obviously. And speaking of names, and not being particularly good at them, there is something that I was supposed to do a very, very long time ago, and I never did. And that is name these two witches. So, as you may recall, we created this little witch arena system where we would kind of create two fighting witches. And back when I first created this, I asked you guys to give me some names for the witches, because right now they're just named Witch and Witch, which isn't very exciting. So, we had a little bit of a vote. We had, I think, 3 different options for different, like, witch names we could go with, different combinations of witch names we could go with. Are you two not fighting? That one looks like it's fighting. I never know with this system. I'm always leery of it. But I went back and looked, and it was actually very, very close between the 3 choices. The winner was actually Scarlet Witch versus Enchantress, which is really cool because it's a Marvel versus DC thing, unless you know a lot about comic books and you know that there's actually an Enchantress in both universes, so it's a little weird. But I think that we're going to go with that anyway. Ow, jerk. And if you're a big fan of one of the other suggestions, for example, Kome and... Nope. Kotake, or wait, was that what it was? I can't remember the names properly right now. I think it was Kome and Kotake, for example, which is 2 characters from Legend of Zelda. I actually have a really good idea for what to do with those names, and possibly the Glinda versus Zelina, I think was the 3rd option, which was the Wizard of Oz witches. So I actually have really cool ideas here in LimeLand, in fact, to utilize those names as well in the future. So if you were rooting for those names, don't worry, we're going to find a use for them. But these guys, due to the popular vote, are Scarlet Witch and Enchantress. So there we go. It's only like 2 months late, but there we go. So with that, I think we're going to call it good here today. I have basically run out of time. I've been trying to get a bit better on track with these videos, and it hasn't gone particularly well. But I'm working at it. Do bear with me. But anyway, that's going to do it for today. So I'll see you guys next time. We will most likely be working on our zombie minigame. So hopefully you guys have cool ideas for that you can give to me. And we'll try and get some player testing in and try and get things sorted out and hopefully at least have a somewhat functional game by the end of next episode. Assuming that we don't have something else come up and need to change our attention to something different. So, anyway, thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed this kind of chaotic episode. And I will see you guys next time. Hope you have an amazing day. I'll see you later.